Today, we are tackling a question that is, well, it's incredibly common, but almost universally misunderstood. It's a point of intense curiosity, the kind of thing often whispered about in private, and it sits right at that intersection of identity and desire. The question is this: why are so many men, and we're talking specifically about men, who identify very clearly as heterosexual, attracted to cross-dressers, or to individuals who present this intensely, sometimes exaggeratedly feminine aesthetic?
Right.
Our mission today is not to categorize or label. It's to, quickly and thoroughly understand the complexity here.
To get beyond the simple answers.
Exactly. We want to move beyond simplistic notions of, like, fetish or contradiction and really explore the psychological, aesthetic, and cultural forces at play. We've compiled a ton of research that suggests this attraction is, well, it's actually a logical outcome of some very deep-seated conditioning. Okay, let's unpack this.
That framing is so important because what we're really exploring is the sheer magnetic power of femininity itself.
The idea of femininity.
Yes. When we look across cultures, across history, femininity, whether it's, in its everyday form, its exaggerated form, or its transformative form, it has always been one of the most powerful forces shaping human desire. This deep dive will shed some light on how culture, aesthetics, and psychology all combine to make this attraction. Well, not just understandable, but like you said, entirely expected.
Let's start with that cultural foundation then, because it is massive.
It is.
Culture hasn't just acknowledged femininity. It has spent centuries, literally centuries, refining it, mythologizing it, and turning it into something you can sell.
An idealized vision.
Totally. Just think about the scope of it. We are bathed in this imagery from, like, Hollywood's golden age glamour to high-fashion campaigns today, pop stars, the endless scroll of social media.
And this constant saturation is so critical because it functions as mass conditioning. We can basically define femininity in this context as a highly sophisticated aesthetic language. It's a language that communicates specific things like softness, mystery, sensuality, warmth, and, high glamour.
And crucially, we learn this language really young.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Men are raised in cultures just saturated with this visual messaging. I mean, almost every major Western media market relies on it. And they develop these strong internalized responses to the visual cues long before they ever sit down and think about sexuality or gender identity.
So they're learning what attractive looks like from day one.
That's it. That template is intensely feminine.
So are we all just slaves to the glossy lipstick and the airbrushed advertising then?
In a way, yeah. We're all shaped by it. If we really break down the specific symbols that culture has tied to attraction, they function almost like deeply embedded visual triggers.
What kind of triggers are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about the movement of long styled hair, the texture of smooth skin, the visual promise of a narrow waist that curves into hips.
The classic hourglass shape.
The classic shape, alluring facial expressions, and of course the visual architecture of clothing. Clothing is, it's engineered to signal sensuality.
Right, like high heels.
High heels are a perfect example. They dramatically alter posture, they elongate the leg, they shift the body's center of gravity to enhance hip movement. These symbols become so deeply tied to what our culture defines as attractive that the brain's response is just automatic.
It's a trained signal, not a conscious choice.
Exactly. It's not necessarily about the person delivering the signal, but the signal itself.
Okay, that brings us right to the psychology of it all and how cross-dressers seem to tap into this conditioned response so masterfully.
Right. So if we look at the psychological pattern of male attraction, it is by and large visual.
Fast. Instinctive.
Very. It's
Yeah.
fast, it's intense, and it instinctively hits those visual triggers we just talked about. Curves, hair, skin, motion. That culture has taught the brain to associate with desire.
And what's fascinating here is the precision cross-dressers use.
The precision is key. This isn't just, putting on a dress. It's a meticulous craft. They often study techniques with passion, with creativity. We're talking specific makeup contouring, strategic cuts of clothing, feminine mannerisms, posture, even voice cadence.
It's an art form.
It is an art form aimed at maximizing that aesthetic impact.
So if the average cisgender woman is often, prioritizing practicality or comfort for her day-to-day life, is it fair to say that the very act of cross-dressing forces a hyper-focus on aesthetics that we just don't see that often?
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. The result is a presentation that is often more stylized, more intentional, and sometimes, for lack of a better word, just more feminine than what you'd see on an average day. The goal is often this pure, amplified glamour.
An idealized image.
Exactly. We should genuinely think of this as femininity as art. It's an amplification, not just a reflection. They're mastering the tools of transformation, contouring that resculpts a face, padding that emphasizes hips, and very strategic wardrobe choices.
So here's the core psychological insight we need to slow down on. If the brain is conditioned to respond to these powerful feminine visuals, what happens when those visuals are delivered with this kind of intentional, high-definition precision?
What happens is the visual signal overrides the secondary data.
What do you mean by secondary data?
The other information. Imagine the brain has a control panel. When that high-definition, intensely feminine aesthetic hits it, it just slams the attraction button so hard that the circuit that's responsible for checking biological gender gets momentarily bypassed.
So the brain is responding to the what, not the who.
It's responding to the output, the perceived femininity, not the input device.
Mm-hmm.
The biological sex of the person delivering the cues becomes, in that moment of intense perception, secondary or even irrelevant.
If the brain sees feminine, it responds as trained.
It responds as it was trained to respond. The speed and intensity of that visual conditioning can just trump the conscious classification of gender.
Which makes that distinction between everyday reality and idealized fantasy so clear. Most women aren't, and shouldn't be expected to be, living up to some media-perfect standard of glamour all the time.
Precisely. Crossdressers are often engaging with femininity as a chosen performance, which makes the whole presentation highly heightened, theatrical, and focused on creating this aesthetic idealization. It's polished, it's deliberate.
And that taps straight into fantasy, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The male psyche is used to responding to curated beauty, a fashion magazine, a burlesque performer, an actress in a movie. This feels like it resonates at that same level.
It does. And this is where we need to connect that idealization to the concept of taboo.
Okay.
Because desire doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It thrives in context. And cultural boundaries shape our experience of it dramatically.
So when attraction feels like it's outside the norm,
it gains a heightened charge. That internal conflict, that sense of, I know who I am, I shouldn't be feeling this, but I am, it creates this complex mixture of fascination and intense excitement.
so we have this idealized femininity, which is powerful on its own. But the fact that it breaks boundaries adds this layer of intensity. Does the forbidden fruit aspect really make the desire feel sharper?
Oh, it absolutely does. The allure of the forbidden is one of the oldest psychological mechanisms we have. When that boundary-crossing experience, the taboo, is combined with those familiar, powerful feminine signals, it creates an emotionally potent cocktail.
Right.
That sensation of doing something outside the established lines often makes the experience feel sharper, deeper, and just profoundly more memorable than everyday attractions. It's the thrill of cognitive dissonance meeting aesthetic perfection.
Which brings us to the biggest misconception that really needs to be dismantled.
Yes.
We have to address the idea that finding a crossdresser attractive means a heterosexual man must be secretly gay or bisexual. That whole assumption relies on such an outdated, simplistic view of sexuality.
It's the crucial distinction. We have to keep emphasizing this. Sexual orientation is primarily about the gender one is attracted to, specifically the gender presentation and energy. It's not solely about the biological sex of the body.
Okay, so let's be very clear. What are these men not attracted to?
They are not attracted to masculinity. They are not attracted to male bodies or traditional male traits. If the cross-dressing individual reverts to a masculine presentation, the attraction for these men usually just vanishes.
So they're responding to the feminine energy, the appearance, the allure.
With great intensity, yes. The object of their desire is femininity itself.
So their core identity remains heterosexual because what they want is still the feminine presentation.
That's right. They're following their established attraction pattern, just in an unexpected delivery vehicle, you could say.
And that clarifies why they might feel their straight identity is totally intact. Even if their experience is broadened, they haven't suddenly started desiring masculine traits.
No, they're just experiencing a high-powered version of what they've always desired. And we have to talk about the seductive power of intention again.
The craft of it.
Cross-dressing is a process. It's a ritual. The deliberate application of makeup, the choice of garments, the complete shift in posture and mannerisms.
It sounds exhausting, but I can also see how it would be incredibly alluring.
Well, it creates an atmosphere just saturated with sensuality because it demonstrates commitment. For men, seeing the result of that dedication, the effort and passion poured into embodying beauty, is often seen as this intimate, powerful gesture. The want to be beautiful is intoxicating.
Okay, let's shift from the purely visual to something a bit more intangible. Let's talk about energy. Attraction isn't just skin deep, right? It's also driven by how someone carries themselves. Their confidence, their courage, their vulnerability.
That is a huge magnetic factor. Crossdressers often embody a really complex blend of traits. You're often engaging with someone who shows significant vulnerability in revealing this hidden side, but also immense courage in defying social expectations.
A kind of strength and softness combined.
A strength and softness that's deeply compelling.
And what does that dynamic do to the relational side of things? You hear about the emotional depth of these encounters.
There's a unique relational element there. Because many crossdressers have done a lot of internal exploration about their identity, they can have this unusual degree of insight and empathy.
So for some men, that dynamic can actually feel safer.
It can feel safer, less judged, and surprisingly, more open. It can make them feel more able to express their own curiosity or vulnerability than they might in more traditional dynamics where social expectations can be so high.
You're outside the standard societal pressure cooker.
Exactly. When you remove those traditional scripts, what's left is often a more authentic and emotionally honest connection.
So for a lot of men, the spark is just curiosity. They encounter someone who looks, moves, and dresses feminine, but breaks their internal map of how gender and attraction are supposed to work.
And when that curiosity meets those powerful sensual stimuli, that polished, glamorous presentation we've been talking about, it just blooms into desire.
Yeah.
Many men report that these attractions were some of the most intense experiences of their lives, not because it changed their core sexuality, but because it profoundly and unexpectedly expanded the boundaries of their desire.
It taught them that their own emotional and erotic landscape was just bigger than they had been taught. The takeaway seems pretty clear. The attraction we've been discussing isn't strange. It's not a contradiction of orientation. It is profoundly human. And it's a logical outcome of visual and cultural conditioning meeting this artistic, intentional expression. The power of femininity to captivate, transform, and seduce. That's the central truth